I've wanted to get you on even before we launched this podcast. I'm like, I got to get Will on at some point. Because there's a couple things about you that I just love. I see you on social media, and you're always so positive. I always feel like you're putting hunters in a really, really good light, and you've made the best of your life after a crazy situation. We've got 9/11 coming up, and we have to talk about it and your experience during 9/11. So can you give the listeners just a run through of, you're a young guy, Port Authority police officer, and 9/11 happens.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me on here, and thanks for remembering 9/11. I think it's a very important thing, just like all of our American history, which I've always am a big, big pusher of that because I love this country just so much. And but on 9/11, I was a rookie cop with the Port Authority Police of New York and New Jersey. So for those that don't know who they are, we're cops on both sides in New York and New Jersey. We have all the major transportation facilities, the bridges, the tunnels, the World Trade Center is ours. And I went to work at the bus terminal. That's in Midtown Manhattan. That's the largest bus terminal in the country. Smack right down from Times Square. And I'll be honest with you, 6 weeks before the attacks, I was living the American dream. I mean, I had just bought my first house with my wife, Allison. We had a 4-year little girl named Bianca, who now has graduated from Auburn University, is working. And my wife was pregnant with our second child, Olivia, who just went into Auburn as a freshman this year. And life was good. I mean, 6 weeks before attack, I would literally skip down the stairs to this old Bronco 2 with as a rookie, not making that much money, and my side view mirror was busted. I would hold it up with duct tape, but every day never felt like work because it's a passion that I always wanted to do, was become a police officer. And really, as corny as it sounds, I really wanted to help other people, and that's what I was getting to do in Midtown Manhattan. It took me 20 minutes from Jersey to get into New York, and it was a beautiful day, as everybody knows. As everybody in the future will learn, it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. And actually, the funny thing is that morning, the night before, I was thinking, because at the time I didn't have private property. I was hunting wildlife management areas. I was going to take what we have personal days, and I was going to take a P day to go hunting because there was a nice buck on this wildlife management area. But now, mind you, this is September, and I didn't have much time, so I had to really figure out what days I wanted to take off. And I told my wife, well, I think I'm going to take a P day to go hunt this buck. And she said to me, maybe you should wait till the rut. I mean, it's kind of hot, and I did. I waited. I said, I'm not going to take a P day. So I always think about that. If I would have taken a personal day, I would have been in the woods when 9/11 happened. Instead, I went to work and went out on post. My post was on the corner of 42nd and 8th Avenue that morning. And, we call it the rush. I mean, people are coming in from New Jersey, upstate New York, Connecticut. I mean, it's thousands of people coming in. Normal day. And before you knew it, I seen something come over the intersection of 42nd and 8th Avenue, and my sergeant and a couple other cops were outside, just outside an awning that I was under. And I saw Sgt Ross kind of look and follow something. I didn't know what it was. I didn't really hear it, but I saw the intersection just go black, which is really weird, like a shadow come over. Before you know it, our radios were crackling, and they were telling us to come back to the police desk, which is a rare thing in the morning during the rush because they have so many people coming in, but we're all went back there. And I remember walking around the corner and seeing one of my sergeants who I really, really admired. And one of the things I learned when I was in the military, because I served in the USS Tripoli in the Navy, was follow somebody in that knows what they're doing, so your chances of coming out are much higher. And that stuck with me through life. And he was one of those sergeants, because I had been unfortunate to a couple of gun calls with him, and he was someone that knew the job, was a good leader, was decisive. But I saw concern on his face. So we went back into what we call our reserve room, our break room. We have a big television set there. And next thing you know, I see the World Trade Center and this big gaping hole coming out of Tower 1 with smoke. What sets us apart as Port Authority police officers is that we do everything cops do. What's the difference is that our facilities that we protect and serve are target-rich environments. We were hit in 1993. The senior cop said, hey, they're going to come back for those towers. And I remember them teach us in the academy, we're terrorist-rich environment. And it was like, wow, this is really happening. And the first thing I did was turn around, go to a payphone to call my wife, Allison. And Allison, luckily I was able to connect with her. And I just said, hey, something bad happened. She's asking me what's going on. I said, I'm not sure. I just want to call you. I'm okay. It was, later that phone call came to help her a little bit when I was missing. But I hung up the phone because at that point, our Inspector Fields, came in and said, hey, we commandeered a bus on 9th Avenue. We're taking a bunch of us down there to help our fellow brothers and sisters because they were already in evacuation mode. So about 20 of us jumped on the bus. And from Midtown to downtown, most people that know New York City, it takes a little bit to get there with the lights and the traffic and everything. That morning we were flying. And on the way down, we're just trying to figure out what's going on because nobody really knew, And on the way down, we didn't know the second plane had hit because while we were going down there, the second plane had hit. So when we get down there, we're about 2 city blocks back. And for those who haven't been in New York, a city block's pretty long. 2 city blocks back, that's when the bus went silent. We looked over to our right, and there was a person in the middle of the street being tended to by an FDNY ambulance, and we could see a lot of blood, and it looked like the person was dead. I mean, and that's 2 city blocks back. Something went flying and hit this person. We went one more block, got off the bus, and I got to tell you, I mean, people have seen a lot of footage of that. It was Armageddon, and I couldn't believe this was happening on our U.S. soil. As we got off the bus, we staged, and I remember just looking up at this big gaping hole. But then on the other tower, I saw the corner of it on fire. But in my mind, I said, okay, the plane hit and something deflected. But again, we didn't know a second plane hit. So now both towers were in distress. I remember just thinking to myself, this is why I became a cop. You got to help people who want to get up there, break a door down, break a wall down so they can see our patch, say, let's get home. And as Port Authority police officers, since we have the bridges, the tunnels, the trade center, the airports, we're cross-trained in firefighting. So we have to know how to use every fire equipment that a regular firefighter uses. And I remember one of our senior officers, Ronnie Delmar, said, look, they're jumping. And that's when he was pointing up. And that's when I looked up and we could see people jumping from the tower. And that was just heartbreaking. I mean, they just kept jumping. People were jumping by themselves. People were jumping holding hands. And, I tell people every time I saw someone jump, I knew that was somebody's mother, brother, sister. It's like you take a pebble and you throw it into a lake and that ripple effect. So I tell everybody, listen, don't think that your life's not important. You touch so many people, you have no idea. And that's what I was thinking is every time someone died, man, so many people are being affected right now. It was killing us. That's when Sergeant McLaughlin, who had led our way down in the Suburban, had parked on Church and Vesey, which is around the corner of the Trade Center, came running from there. And he said, I need volunteers. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know who volunteered first, myself or my classmates. I have 2 classmates that graduated with me. We graduated January 19th of that year at the World Trade Center Marriott. So it was kind of weird that, here we are 9 months later from where we graduated and it's under attack. Dominic Pizzulo and Antonio Rodriguez and myself volunteered. And Sergeant McLaughlin said, let's go. So we start running. And that one city block leading up to the Trade Center, there was nothing there but debris, unfortunately, body parts, pieces of the plane. And, the rest of the guys were standing back. There were firefighters there, police officers. There was a staging area. So as we ran, I tell people, listen, I don't care how much you are. And, in a bad situation, it's scary. And I'll be honest with you, I was scared. I mean, as I'm running, I look back and I see a lot of cops, firefighters staging, and it's just us running toward the building. But I remember at that point, I had taken an oath to serve and protect. So I always tell people, just like my father told me, when you make a promise, you keep it. And I could see concern on Dominic's face and Antonio's face. And we just knew we were a team and we had to get to the building and try to help people. We got there. Sergeant McLaughlin said, Jimeno, grab our hats, our PR-24s, which we were carrying at the time, run up to the Suburban, just throw the equipment in there. We're going to go inside here and we're going to go to an E-room. E-rooms are emergency rooms that are set up throughout the World Trade Center. So first responders can get equipment, whether it's firefighting gear, you name it, it's in there. So they went into the building. I ran up to the corner and came around the corner of the Suburban. And everybody knows how big a Chevy Suburban is, but the front of it was crushed. That's when I realized, hey, dummy, there's stuff falling from the sky. Concrete was falling. So I threw the equipment in there, but I looked down Church Street, which led to an exit for the other building. And man, I just saw people running like cattle. I mean, thousands of people were running away from the building. So I ran back and hooked up with the team. We got into this locker. There wasn't too much gear left. Antonio put on a helmet and a bunker coat. Me and Dominic didn't have bunker coats that fit us all. We threw our helmets on and we threw the Scott Air Packs on, which you see firefighters wear, that carries the air for them. We double checked each other and we just promised each other whatever we do, we don't leave each other. So at that point, Sergeant McLaughlin said, "Let's go down to the police desk." So for those of you who have never been to the World Trade Center, it was two buildings connected by a mall level. And through that mall level, you could get to Tower 1 or Tower 2. And in the middle of it, it's, like I said, it's a mall level. You had escalators that took you down to the subway, to the PATH train. So we went down one level and went to the police desk. When we walked into the police desk, it was really surreal because, you know, you walk in and there's a piece of the plane that our detectives have brought in. And it's like, you know, your mind is like, why is there a piece of a plane here? I know what's happening, but it still doesn't make sense. It was just crazy, crazy. Sergeant McLaughlin said, "Hey, you know, get some more equipment. We got a mail canvas cart, and we just started loading more Scott Air Packs in, axes, lights. And as we left, we hooked up with another officer, Christopher Amoroso. There's a very famous picture of Christopher Amoroso. If you Google him, Christopher Amoroso, he's saving a lady, and he's one of our Port Authority cops. You know, I always laugh at the Nike controversy, you know, because he actually wore Nike gloves as his protection gloves. And, you know, when they say just do it, well, he was doing it that day. He had already saved 4 people. He came back in. That would be the last person he ended up saving before he hooked up with us. And he had a big welt over his eye. And we're like, "Hey, are you okay, Chris?" He's like, "Man, something hit me, but we got to get people home." And he asked Sergeant McLaughlin, "Can I join the team?" Sergeant McLaughlin, knowing his work ethic, because he had just been transferred from the bus terminal in Midtown Manhattan to the World Trade Center probably like a month before, said, "Yeah." And Christopher, I always say the saying, you know, "I'll go through a door with you," you know, or "I'd go through a door with that person." That's the kind of person he is, that you trust him with your life. And now we became a team of 5. So we went back upstairs in the mall level and we started walking. And there was about a couple inches of water on the ground from pipes that busted. And the inside of the World Trade Center was all marble and it's cracking. But the one thing I tell people what I saw that day as I pushed the cart was a lot of love that day. I saw a lot of love that I wish we had more of today in the current situation, because there was a single file line of people come from Tower 1 helping each other. And they didn't matter. They were different colors, different religions, different sexes, but they were helping each other. And I remember a black gentleman with a white gentleman carrying a blonde woman who had a severe cut on her leg. She was bleeding, but they were in a single file. And I said, "Man, if these civilians can be this brave, us in uniform, we got to be 3 notches above." And I share that because I want people to know when things get really bad, really good comes out of it. Good people step up. And these are total strangers helping each other. So as we went, we ended up crossing the T. So basically, you can go right at that point to go to the Tower 1 where we knew was under distress, or to Tower 2. And we hooked up with another crew of guys from the Port Authority. They were dressed like us, everything. I didn't know the 4 guys, but the guy pushing the cart, they had a cart just like ours, was a classmate of mine, Warren Stewart. He graduated. And we were the 100th class. We were the centennial class, so we were a big deal, you know. And Stewart had 4 years on the NYPD, but came over to the Port Authority. And I remember, you know, just talking to him a little bit and how crazy this is. And then the sergeant said, "All right, let's go." So his team had to go and our team had to go. And I remember just, you know, fist pumping them like, "Yo, be safe." You know, that whole team, we never found them, unfortunately. They were just disintegrated. We continued on to Tower 2. At that point, Sergeant Glock said, "Jimeno, stay here with the cart. The rest of you guys come downstairs. We're going into another E-room to get more equipment." So as they went downstairs, I could look into the lobby of the other tower. And I could hear gunshots because our cops were shooting glass out on the opposite side to get people out onto the West Side Highway. And because you couldn't get enough exits because so many people were running. I saw, unfortunately, people who were injured, people who had passed. And I would hear this distinctive sound. And when you got closer to the outer perimeter of the buildings, concrete would be hitting the ground. But then there was another sound. And that sound, unfortunately, was the sound of a human being hitting the ground. And that was tough. And I'll be honest with you, I was already 32 years old. I had 4 years in the military. Consider myself a pretty tough guy, but I'll tell you what, it's breaking my heart, and I was scared. That's when another officer walked up to me, Bruce Reynolds. I recognized Bruce from a local paper where I live because he worked at the George Washington Bridge. So on the Jersey side, you have this county called Bergen County. So we get the Bergen County Record. And I would see articles about the Port Authority officers before I became a Port Authority police officer, where they would stop people from jumping off the bridge. And Bruce had made the paper a couple of times. And I knew he had about 17 years on the job. So it was someone I could look up to. And he walked up to me. He was tired. He had a Scott Air Pack on. He was a short, black, bald guy. And he said, hey, Reynolds, GWB, which means George Washington Bridge. I said, Jimeno, BT, bus terminal. And he said, kid, it's going to be a long day, but we're going to get a lot of people home today. And I needed that. I needed that. And, I always talk about Bruce because I think he wanted to be an Irish guy. He married an Irish woman. He was the only black guy at the time at the St. Patrick's Day parade that would color his black bald head green. He loved Ireland so much. And, but he should have been in the buildings. He had a lung condition from something that happened on the job. And yet here he is, putting his life at risk, trying to help people. So we kind of chit chat a little bit. He started walking away. That's when Sergeant McLaughlin started coming up and said, let's go. Bruce walked away toward the command center of Tower 2. And I could see more firefighters. I could see, Bruce heading that way. That'd be the last time I saw Bruce or anybody saw him because he died on the initial collapse. They ended up finding him the following February. So it helped that I was able to tell them who I saw when I saw them. It kind of helped pinpoint their location, and it turned out to be he was where I last seen him. So that helped a little bit for the family. And then at that point, I had been pushing the cart from the police desk all the way out to 2. And you got to imagine, we got helmets on, we got the Scott Air Packs, we got gun belts. We look like firefighters with guns on our side. Your adrenaline's going, you're sweating. I'm pushing this cart. I'm not even thinking about it. And Antonio Rodriguez says, hey, Will, you're not going to be any good if you're tired wherever we get to. Because we didn't know where we're going. We're just following Sergeant McLaughlin. And I said, yeah. And he goes, let me push. I thought, that's pretty good. Teamwork, right? Give me a break from pushing this heavy cart. So we switched. So now at that point, we're heading down this lobby. Just imagine it's an L. You're going this way and you're making a left to go to the other tower. But it was probably like about 40 yards down, 45 yards down. We'd have to go and then make a left and then go another 45, 50 yards down to the other building. So we started going. Now we're leaving the building that's behind us, Tower 2. And as we start pushing, Antonio's behind the mail cart. Christopher is at Antonio's 9 o'clock. And then Sergeant McLaughlin is in front of the cart at 11 o'clock. I'm at noon, right in front of the cart. And then Dominic's about 1 o'clock. We're in front of this cart, and we're walking up this hallway. For whatever reason, Sergeant McLaughlin's radio goes off. And when I say for whatever reasons, because we just happened to stop what I feel was a miracle. We stopped in front of a doorway to our right that led to an elevator because there was nothing else in this hallway except shops on one side and this one doorway or hallway that led to an elevator. Sergeant McLaughlin's radio goes off. Inspectors ask him where we're at. He says, hey, we're here. Is there anything wrong with Tower 2? Because Sergeant McLaughlin had seen that the elevator shafts downstairs were buckling, and it didn't really dawn on him, hey, because the fire, the jet fuel's coming down, it's heating things up, and a bunch of firefighters were walking past us with an EMT. That's when Sergeant McLaughlin said, just be careful. I just seen the base down there. The elevator shafts are buckling, so just be careful. Fine.
At that point, up to that point, had anybody in your group considered the possibility that the towers might collapse? Was that even on your radar at all? No.
No, even today we talk about Sergeant McLaughlin, who had set up the security after 1993 bombing. He said, if I thought those buildings were coming down, I would have never taken you guys in there. Nobody. I mean, we lost so many police and FDNY experts that died right under those towers. Nobody thought they were coming down. It wasn't even a thought. But at that point, we hear a humongous boom. I mean, I can't even explain it to you. And I turned to look from where we're coming. And I looked into that lobby and I saw a fireball the size of my house coming in there. And I remember looking up and holding onto my helmet. It was like an earthquake. I'm looking at the ceiling and everything's shaking. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to do. So remember what I said about follow somebody who knows what they're doing so the percentage you coming out might be higher. Well, I picked the right guy because Sergeant McLaughlin yells, run toward the elevator. All I knew was I had been to the World Trade Center for 2 previous protests and there were nothing. So I didn't know those buildings. He knew them like the back of his hand. So Dominic starts running first to our right. I'm behind Dominic. Sergeant McLaughlin's behind me. And we hit this hallway. When we hit this hallway, I could see the lights start to flicker. And I thought I saw like brown stuff. Well, what it was Tower 2 was coming down. And as Tower 2 is coming down, it's pushing all the debris into the building. What Sergeant McLaughlin saw was the debris field coming at us. In his mind, quickly he thought, hey, what do they do in the Middle East? They blow something up. They let the first responders come in. They blow it up again. So he was trying to get us to this elevator and try to get around the elevator. So hopefully we'll get some deflection, whether it be from the wall, whether it be from the beams. He just wanted to get us around there to try to deflect this debris wall that was coming at us. I never saw it. He did. So when you watch on TV, that building coming down, that's pushing stuff out. Well, it was pushing stuff right into the mall level. At that point, Dominic made a left. For a second, I don't know why, I thought I saw a light in front of me. And instinctively, I'm like, I want to run toward the light. But then I remembered we promised each other we wouldn't leave each other. So I followed Dominic. That's when something big picked me up and just dropped me on my back. And we were getting pelted with concrete. I was in a 45-degree angle on my back, holding on my helmet. And something hit my helmet and ripped it off. I mean, chin strap and all. So a cop goes, what's the first thing a cop goes for is his radio. That's his lifeline. I went for my radio, which was on my lapel, and I'm yelling 813, which is our code for everybody come. Like, I'm in trouble. And I'm yelling. Something hits my hand. I lose my radio. I'm just holding on for dear life. And it seemed like it took forever, but then it felt like it happened fast and very, very violently, and everything stopped.